Hello. Tonight we're bringing you the conclusion of our extraordinary rescue story from Tasmania's Franklin River. Last November, a Lithuanian whitewater rafter became trapped up to his chest in a fast-running rapid. Australian Story has exclusive footage of the perilous race-against-the-clock mission to save the life of Valdas Spalauskas.
The River Franklin in Tasmania. It is very wild river.
Being unstuck really quickly.
Valdas just slipped and dropped.
How does someone's leg go into a crack and not come out? Like, surely there's a way. There's always a way. And there wasn't.
His knee was so stuck.
I said, you will die here in this hole.
We had to make the decision to amputate.
Picked my arm up to have a look at it, and I could see there was this big bend in it, and I was like...
The dog's just fallen over and broken his wrist.
So that was the big question. Could he hold on until another doctor arrived?
I prayed to God. That's all I could do.
I was actually at the end of a run of shifts when I got a call from my immediate boss at about 7:15 in the morning. He explained that Valdas had been entrapped now for around about 18 or 19 hours. And really, at this stage, the only feasible way to get Valdas as was going to require an amputation, and this was probably going to have to happen in a rapid underwater. I must admit, I was pretty horrified.
All avenues of rescue have now been exhausted and definitively said the patient will require amputation.
When we winched in, it's really almost a bit of an overwhelming scene. There was so many faces there of people who've been really working hard all night. And the scene itself was incredible. The river is very dramatic. Huge boulders, rushing rapid. It was really quite a hazardous situation.
We got a 10-minute handover of what the situation was. It was very much impressed on us that he wasn't going to survive if we delayed anything. So we just knew we're here to do the job that we've been tasked to do, which was to amputate Valdas's leg.
I certainly felt a professional obligation to make sure that there really was no other option. So we did talk through what had been done overnight, what had been tried, and everybody agreed that there was nothing else that could be done to get him out. And the inevitable consequence of him staying there was death. And that was going to be quite soon.
I cannot say that I was happy, but finally some stress decreased because final decision was taken.
We came up against a pretty critical issue, which was that our tourniquets wouldn't work on his leg.
The leg needed to have a solid tourniquet on so they wouldn't bleed once the leg was amputated. But it was really hard to get a tourniquet onto his leg.
It's all Velcro, and because of the flowing water, the Velcro just folded up on itself. Joe asked for some little ratchet straps just for strapping your gear down. So he was able to establish 2 tourniquets on Valdas.
We needed to be able to anaesthetise Valdas, which is a lot more challenging when someone's upright in a river. I really couldn't easily get to Valdas's head, which is crucial for managing the airway. So it was quickly obvious that we couldn't use general anaesthesia.
We gave Valdas a drug called ketamine. You're unconscious, but still breathing, you still have a heart rate. The really important bodily functions that keep you alive are still operating.
We're getting close to where we're actually going to do the amputation. So Rowan, paramedics, got Valdas's hand, and you've got Joe, the doctor, who's behind Valdos, and that's where he'll perform the amputation.
The only position I could get into was kind of in a slightly spread-eagled, awkward position. And I really had to block out on the noise of the water and the environment around me. It's normally a visual procedure. You can see what you're doing. In this case, I couldn't see it. So I chose to not wear gloves so that I could actually feel what was going on.
No one ever trains how to amputate a leg above the knee, underwater, in the wilderness, with no resources, in a rapid on belay. It's such an extraordinary circumstance.
There was a moment before I started of a real sense of, I don't want to do this. I really, really don't want to do this. Not so much that it doesn't need to be done, it's more that it felt wrong. So I really had to talk myself through it, to think that it really does need to be done to save this man's life.
The amputation is currently being commenced.
First of all, I cut away the muscles of the thigh, leaving the tremendously strong femur. And we trained to saw through this using what's called a giggly saw, which is it's a fine wire, which has got sharp serrations on it. It's very light, which is why we favour it. But it's also pretty delicate.
Joe looked up and my first thought was, oh good, he's through, the patient's released. But then he's looked up at me and the look was of, oh no, and he held up the one end of the saw.
He met my eyes, I met his eyes. I showed him the broken giggly saw. It was just such a heart-sink moment. I can't believe that we've come so far. I can fail to get through the leg. Fortunately, we were able to break the femur. And then suddenly, Valdos was free. Suddenly, he sort of came backwards into my arms. I was waiting for a gush of blood, but there wasn't. And the entire procedure, although it felt a long time to me, only took about 2 minutes or so.
The tourniquet held perfectly, but he was in pretty rough condition at that point.
We've got the harness and a pulley system attached to Valdos. We're going to haul him approximately 2 metres up that rock face.
We were not allowed to look at this side, but I saw when Valdos was taken out with a special equipment, color of skin and all the body looked was died. When I returned to the camp, my friends asked how. Several minutes I was silent. I didn't say anything else than let's pray for Valdos.
With hypothermia, all your body systems slow down and almost stop. So, given the length of time that he is in the water, we anticipated that he was going to have a cardiac arrest minutes after we got him up.
Over the next 10 to 15 minutes, it became clear that Valdos was deteriorating. His heart rate was slowing, his breathing was not satisfactory.
He stopped breathing after about half an hour. So we connected him up to a ventilator. And then just as the helicopter's ready to come over scene and take him away, his heart stopped beating. So we performed CPR on him and we put on this mechanical CPR device and bundled him up and got him ready to be flown out of there.
This is where Valdos and Joe are about to get winched up to the aircraft. Everyone's hovering over the gear to make sure it doesn't get blown into the water.
When you've been in Ambo for 17 years, you basically never see a patient like that and think, oh, we'll see him again. You think he's dead. And there's a little part of you that thinks that we killed him as his rescuers.
I didn't have a big hope that he will survive, maybe 1-2%. Nobody looked me at the eyes. Only one rescuer hugged me, but didn't say any word. I'm very thankful for him. That's lovely support.
Aš jį mintyse palaidojau, ta prasme, tai jo, pradėjau verkt. Ir taip, ta prasme, kažkaip, ta prasme, mintyse pradėjau atsisveikinti.
There's an immense relief when you get onto the helicopter and swinging through the door.
He had a surgical amputation of his left leg about 30 minutes ago. He's now in traumatic cardiac arrest.
We knew that all we can do is kind of maintain his breathing and circulation with the mechanical CPR device and get him to hospital.
We'll be at the Royal in about 20 minutes. Can we please have a pad activation and a trauma call for the ED?
There was a crucial radio call that summarised that he had a hypothermic cardiac arrest, what our ETA to the hospital would be, and that we required a heart-lung bypass machine on arrival, which is a really big call. It's a whole team that need to be there to receive the patient.
At that point, Valdas is gone, and we got this message to say, you've got to get all the people out of there too. 14 people, half a ton of gear, pulling apart all the rescue equipment. Eventually, I get winched into the helicopter, shoved into a seat. All of a sudden, you just sort of go, you just melt in your chair. You just sit there and stare out the window. You sort of think you're going to fly back to Hobart and sort of hear the news that Valdas didn't make it.
At the time of Valdas's arrival, he'd been in cardiac arrest for about an hour and a half with CPR ongoing. During that situation, every minute counts and there's ongoing damage occurring to all the organs in the body, and the one we worry about the most is the brain. From the time of Valdas arriving at the hospital to the time when he was on ECMO support was about 15 minutes or so.
We call ECMO the heart-lung machine. It keeps the heart and lungs performing when the body's not able to perform that function. Situations like this, you don't know what the outcome's going to be, and you can just hope for the best. And really, Valdas had everything thrown at him.
We were flying back to Hobart, and then my phone buzzed. It said, Valdas onto ECMO, heart rate 90, temperature 26.5. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, he's alive.
We knew that he wasn't out of the woods yet. There was a long way to go, and it was like, okay, is that the body just holding on to a little bit of hope?
If your heart stops beating on the side of the Franklin River, you're toast. Except that Valdis died of a hypothermic cardiac arrest. And it's one of the really unique ways where you actually have a chance.
With hypothermia, all your body systems slow down and almost stop. It's a unique situation where human beings can actually survive quite long periods of not breathing or very little heart activity.
In that situation, we can use ECMO to restore blood flow to the body and then also warm the body up in a controlled and safe fashion to the point where we can then restart the heart. But there's still a lot of uncertainty, and we thought it was more likely that he would not survive.
Valdis is in a critical condition in hospital, and the Lithuanian embassy calls his next of kin, his sister Raza, to let her know that there's been an incident on the river.
Jie patys nėra informuoti, bet pasakė, kad brolio atsitiko nelaimė ir kad būklė itin sunki. Vienu žodžiu, tai buvo kažkoks tai zombio egzistavimas, grinai.
Sometimes we know early on if there has been damage to the brain, but often in this situation it can take several days to really be confident either way about it. There was a plan made to perform a scan of the brain, and it just happened that on the day when that scan was due to be done, Valdis woke up.
Kankinkit toliau, susitaikiau kad mirsiu. Ir kai jau šitą susitaikiau, jau girdėjau tą giesmę. Šitą, čia kaip paskutinė giesmė prieš dangų pakliūnant ar į pragarą. Ir po tos giesmės atsimerkiau ir žiūriu, kad balta. Viršui balta lubos. Ir tai čia buvo ta reanimacijos palatoje, atsibudau.
The first message that Valdis just opened eyes happened after 4 days. I cannot express my feeling or feeling of my friends. They loudly shout in Lithuanian, Valio!
There were signs he was improving, but the concern was his neurological state. He was doing things like opening his eyes, but his eyes were rolling back, and he was kind of thrashing around the bed. And it was an indication that, okay, maybe this gentleman's scared.
Visą laiką kankino košmaras, kad mane kažkas reketuoja, reikalauja išpirkos. Sako, jeigu nesumokėsi tos išpirkos, tave toliau kankinsim, visą jūsų grupę ir tempsim ten per tos akmenis.
The nurse from ICU contacted Lithuanian community asking, do you have anyone speaking Lithuanian and maybe they can come to the hospital? And in 20 minutes we were there. I just wanted to say, hello, Valdis, I'm Jurgita, I live here in Hobart. Just you are in safe hands. Just I came to support you. And I think that when he heard someone saying in Lithuanian, ar gali paspausti ranką? Can you squeeze my hand? He started to respond, and I think probably that was because He felt, oh, someone spoke with him, like in the language which he understood. And the doctor said that, oh, he looks so much relaxed now. First day he couldn't speak, but the next day he started to respond, and his first words were what he said, I'm survivor. And that was said in English.
Tas jausmas, kad tu vis dėlto gyvas likai, vis dėlto ištrūkai iš to košmaro, atsigavau.
I was all in tears, nurses were in tears, we all like, it's such a beautiful moment, and he is a survivor.
Kai man telefoną parodė jį pirmą kartą, tai buvo, kažkas tokio. Ir kai jisai mane pažino, tai tada buvo džiugu. Yeah.
Hearing that he'd survived and that he'd survived with a working brain was just like, your heart was just ready to burst. There were more than a few moments with more than a few people, like just sort of cheering, like, yeah, you know.
I was in the slightly unusual position that my other role is within the hospital system as a trauma specialist. So I found myself being in the position of Valdes's treating doctor in the hospital. I certainly had to have a discussion with him early in the piece and explain that I was actually the person who cut off his leg. I felt like I had to apologise. And he too was quite emotional. But it formed a bond, I guess. Quite a unique bond, really. And I remember him looking up at me and saying, I'm sorry. But yes, I felt there was a real moment of connection there where we both sort of looked at his leg and looked at each other and said, I'm sorry, this is the way it is.
Beliko tik tais būdas, kad reikia atlikti amputavimą. Ir aš supratau, kad tai gerai, nes jeigu būtų nenusprendę to, aš įtariu, kad ir dar dabar likčiau tenais įstrigęs. Su 2 kojom, bet būčiau visas įstrigęs ir likęs ten tai. Svarbiausias tas dalykas, kad aš išlikau, išgyvenau ir tai didžiausias džiaugsmas.
After 18 days, he was discharged from ICU to the trauma ward to get him to the appropriate state to be able to get back home.
It was January when Valdes left the hospital. It was a joyful moment, and at the same time it was a sad moment. I saw tears in his eyes, and his sister said, never, Valdes never cries.
Kai Valdes išlipo iš lėktuvo, jeigu taip galima pasakyti, iš karto nuvežėm į ligoninę. Laimė, aišku, be galo. Aišku, pasikeitęs labai, numetęs svorio, matė, taip, graudu buvo iš tikrųjų.
From the very beginning, Valdes wasn't able to think about the incident. But when he became stronger, he started to remember And he started to ask us questions, what happened.
Man tai atrodo, kad mano labai buvo hidrobatų kietas padas. Ir dėl to ant akmens jisai slysta iš tikrųjų. Čia reiškia, buvo nevykęs, man atrodo, pirkinys iš parduotuvės. Ir iš karto koja kažkaip ir pakliuvo į tą tarpą. Taip, kad ne iš vietos negalima buvo jos pajudinti. Aišku, pradėjau galvoti, o kas bus, jeigu manęs nesugebės ištraukti. Ir tada jau pradėjo galva. Nes jau tą paskutiniai momentai iki amputacijos, aš jau nebeatsimenu. Aš to momento tiksliai neatsimenu, bet aš liktai atsimenu, kad gerai, linktelėjau galvą, reiškia, darykit, ką reikia. Taip suprast reikėjo. Tas momentas, kur aš jau nebeatsimenu nieko.
As a fellow kayaker, I can really feel for him with such a life-changing injury. Particularly since, I know that his passion is kind of expedition, exploration of rivers, which is going to be really terrifically difficult for him to continue to do that at the same level with an amputation. But on the other hand, Valdez is a tremendously strong, independent, accomplished person. I feel confident he'll adapt.
I'm trying to follow up on his recovery. Every time when I call him, I see such a progress. Like from just at the very beginning, sitting just in wheelchair, then, seeing he's on crutches. And now I call him and he's walking on his prosthesis. He said, look, Jurgita, I can talk with you and hold my phone, and I can just walk.
Kažkaip per daug nesureikšminau, kojos nėra. Bet džiaugtis, kad gyvas likai. Valdai! Kur sės čia?
Sveikas, Valdai.
Kadangi mano tas įvykis nutraukė žygį, tai aš turiu tokią pasiūtusią idėją, kad 26 metais vis dėlto sugrįžti į Tasmaniją ir pabaigti tą upę. Susidaužiam.
Kaip malonu tave gyvą matyti.
It is the sign that Valdas fully recovered. He returned back for his strength, resistance, don't have any fear, and the plans must be done.
Jau buvo šie metai suplanuoti, o kitais metais nieko neplanuokit. Franklinas.
This idea that Valdez might want to come back and do the Franklin doesn't surprise me one little bit.
Akys šviesos, mėlynos.
Jau šitą praėjau, tai jau ten viską dabar praeisiu, ne?
He's just got that determination that I think he could do that. Wow, I'd love to do that trip with him. Yeah, wouldn't that be fabulous?
This case was just such an incredible episode of teamwork. From the moment we got in there, people would sort of step in or out of the roles as they needed, and it continued on right through into the hospital, through emergency department, through the ICU, and it's what made the case work.
This story is a story of serendipity, really, of sort of 100 things that went his way.
But we were so lucky. A few millimetres of rain could have put an extra foot of water through the river, and I think we all know the outcome of that.
My friend survived for 23 hours in the cold water. He was a legend with 2 legs. But I think with 1 leg, or missing 1 leg, he will be double legend.
Svarbu, kad tu esi gyvas ir gyvenimas gražus. Aš skolingas Australijai. Australijos žmonės faktiškai man irgi padėjo išgyventi. Ir man iš karto ašaros akyse pasirodo, kai aš prisimenu jų tą rūpestį. Jeigu aš būčiau ne Australijoje, tai nežinau, kas būtų man likę. Tai aš Australijai labai skolingas. Thank you for Australia.
Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander viewers are advised that the following program contains images and voices of people who have died.